When it comes to Talladega Superspeedway, it's always been to be prepared for the unexpected. With speeds reaching more than 200 miles an hour and packs 3 wide, multiple rows deep, you never know when the big one will strike. This evening, some of the top drivers in the sim racers for Mental Health Cup Series will be not only trying to avoid the crashes and carnage, but also fighting for the playoff lives. With only a couple drivers locked into the 12-car postseason, anything, and I mean anything, could happen tonight. Who will make the cut for the championship and who will be caught on the outside looking in? We're about to find out on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening and welcome to the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series, live from the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. I'm Justin Prince, alongside the booth tonight is Chris Bobby. Behind the scenes is director of Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Now Chris, this is a track that is known for its high speeds, but is also a track that can cause some high tension amongst the field with its deep packs. What can you tell us about Talladega and what to expect tonight?
Well, as we know, it's a 2.66 mile tri-oval, very high banking around this track, and as legend has it, it's built on an ancient Indian burial ground, so these drivers could be seeing a perfectly spooky for October event here in Talladega, Alabama. We look for drivers to be packed close together in the draft, as this is a Superspeedway restrictor plate type track. Don't forget also the start-finish line is a lot further down than you would expect. Instead of right dead center in the tri-oval, it is down more closer towards turn number 1. So we expect close racing, fast racing, and it's going to be a huge challenge for these drivers to keep them pointed in the right direction and avoid the big one.
Absolutely, Chris, and especially since the championship battle to be inside the top 12 to make the playoffs is still having a lot of pressure coming into today. Colton Lane is on top of the point standings, currently though by just 1 point over Jalen Battle. Rachel Hunt comes in third, Tyler Fody in fourth, with Blake Trawick rounding out the top 5. Scott Ricard is in sixth, while Camper, Levins, O'Hare, Mogart, Danny Banfield, I should say, and Adam Sweet are all inside the top 12. However, up to 16 drivers will be fighting for the final spots for the postseason, because they're all within the maximum points total of 49 entering today. In other words, some of those drivers inside the top 12 who have, mind you, just a 3-point advantage to Jody Banfield in 13th could potentially fall out of the playoffs if they have a bad day today, Chris.
Exactly. This is a track where a lot of desperate moves can be made and a lot of points could be gained. But even easier than gaining spots, it's a lot easier to lose spots in those point standings. This track can be very unforgiving and plays no favors to anybody.
Let's quickly take a look at the race details if we can here. As mentioned, it's the final race of the regular season here today, but the 10th of 16th on the campaign. But a couple things to definitely note. Today's distance, 54 laps, it's 149 miles just underneath that point. But as well, points are given to the top 10 of the halfway point. That will be crucial at that point of the race. The winner also gets an additional 3 points for a maximum of about 45, 46 points. You also get the point for a led lap as well as the most laps led on the racetrack. But the big key here with the fixed sets is that 75% restricted fuel, meaning it's looking like it might be a two-stopper today, and fuel saving might be prevalent for parts of the day today.
That's for sure, Justin. And when you have these big packs like we see, sometimes it can be easy to save fuel, but just as much it can also be very, very easy to lose the draft and find yourself behind the 8 ball trying to save fuel.
And the thing is, with the 14 gallons in the tank for these cars, it could open up the door for potential strategy. We talked about it a little bit amongst ourselves before the start of the broadcast tonight. Usually on a full tank of 18 gallons, it'd be smarter to take 4 tires because of the length. It might open up the chance of seeing some drivers maybe risk it to take 2 tires when the green flag flies and we get to our first round of green flag pit stops here. A lot could potentially happen on this racetrack tonight. By the way, the practice times are on the left side of your screen. Jared Mogar currently on top of the board. However, the practice times are going to fluctuate potentially based on who's got a pack and who's be able to get a run here. And it's going to be important to stay in the pack today because with this track, if you aren't in the pack, you are in trouble.
Exactly. This is one of those events where you really can't win it on your own. You gotta have some friends out there, and you gotta be in the right place at the right time.
And the thing is, too, remember, this is the new draft package that debuted in 2019 where, for those that don't remember, does not have a restrictor plate. It uses the tapered spacer. A couple of the main differences, a more fuel burn for these cars, as well as more throttle response time. Before, it would take, say, a couple seconds to be able to regain some momentum from getting out of the gas on a checkup. Takes you maybe half a second to regain that momentum in this year's package. And it's led to a lot of excitement and potential moves, and a lot of aggression and moves in this package, Chris.
Yeah, the increased throttle response has got to be a huge help for these drivers. I mean, you've seen it before on, watching the races on TV or even in previous iterations of this track through iRacing. You'd be bogged down for what felt like forever trying to get the car up to speed, whereas I'm sure it's still probably a little bit more desperation when you're behind, but it's got to be a little bit easier now with the new configuration.
And you're also going to see a lot of bump drafting such as that. And with this package, some drivers will potentially feel comfortable to do it even in the corners. Jody Banfield currently trying to go in a bump draft. It's on the back end of Cosman Yelnishio, as he is currently working the lead driver of this group of about 5 cars on the racetrack of the practice session. He's currently 4th on the board. But another thing to keep in mind, we mentioned the fuel totals and we mentioned the potential strategy windows. You can burn as much as a gallon more of fuel by being the lead car the entire time of a pack, so we might see that go back and forth all night tonight. And a lot of potential drivers getting lead lap bonus points.
Throughout our season, Justin, we've kind of talked about drivers that seemed like wanting to be up front was the game that they all played. Nobody wanted to give up the lead. And it'll be interesting to see those drivers possibly change that dynamic here today. And then again, it could be just like the other races where we thought maybe they'd play games like that, and maybe somebody's just going to want to stay out front until the very end. But so far this season, that hasn't always been the right move.
Real quickly, in terms of the season, the last race for the season went to Richmond, where Jared Mogart scored his 2nd victory. We've also seen now 2 multiple race winners on the campaign, Mogart and Fody. Remember, Fody from Kentucky was able to get that victory. Everybody else who's gone into victory lane has won just once on the season. Battle, Corey Blevins, Stephen Durbin, who won the first race, Mac Ruenberg, and Adam Sweet are those drivers here. So when it comes to Talladega 2, there's the chance of a new winner breaking the way into victory lane here today, especially with this track's history.
Yeah, this is a very unpredictable track. You catch the draft at the right time at the right place, and you could find yourself going from the back of the field to leading the pack very quickly. It's one of the more exciting factors of Talladega, and one of the reasons why we're all such big fans watching racing there.
And that leads to the quick question now, too. Some of the excitement, though, remember, leads to, as mentioned in the intro, the big one. Potential carnage, potential incidents. If you're a driver in this field, what is your strategy? Do you stay up at the front, or do you prefer to be like some potential groups that want to stay in the back and stay calm and patient?
Well, I really think there's 2 schools of thought, as you kind of mentioned. I think there's going to be the guys that are up front and aggressive and trying to stay ahead of the trouble, but there's also going to be those guys that lag back and watch for the stuff to happen in front of them. But unfortunately, not everybody can be at the front, not everybody can be at the back. So you're going to have plenty of people in the middle that get caught up in stuff that they may have nothing that they're responsible for, and it's going to be tough to pick your strategy and kind of pick your poison on how you're going to manage your race.
Indeed, you're looking right now at one of the last groups of drivers in the closing stage of the practice. As you see inside the top of the board, much of the drivers that have worked in the draft so far tonight prepare for qualifying in the race today in the 48-second bracket. The drivers are all set to go for 5 minutes of qualifying, just 2 laps. And that's going to be important for these competitors if they want the track position to be up towards the front. And it'll be also telling to see who wants to try and stay in the back and play the patient game. Remember, when it comes to qualifying on the super speedways, it takes until the second lap to get up to speed. Majority of the drivers, though, with the 5 minutes, will have to get out quick onto the racetrack already. Drivers such as Rachel Hunt already hitting the gas pedal.
Yeah, very quickly they got into it for qualifying, with Rachel Hunt coming into the event, I believe, third in the point standings. So she's had a very, very solid season so far and looking to get on the track early and bank a qualifying time.
And keep in mind, some drivers prefer to quick shift their way to fourth gear to be able to get off the pit lane onto the apron and onto the racing surface. Ours go straight up from second to third to fourth, right at the optimal points to shift up. Now keep an eye on these drivers as they get ready for qualifying too. They will stay up towards the wall. The reason? You're able to build up more speed, try and get up in that section of the wall, as well as have less turn-in, as you would say, along that yellow line. Difference if you stay at the bottom to staying up at the top for your first lap or so, could be on the second lap as much as about 4, 5, 6 tenths of a second.
Yeah, it's something you don't really think about when you're sitting at home, but when you put some thought into it, the less steering input you have to put in, the less speed you're scrubbing off. So those very gradual turn-ins at the top help keep the speed up, and the fact that you're up top and you can eventually dive it down to the bottom of the track for your hot lap, you're able to build up some speed that way as well.
Keep an eye on the left side of your screen as the drivers make their way around the racetrack. Drivers such as Fody are approaching their first runs to the white flag and your green flag for the respective qualifying laps. But Hunt is amongst the first drivers. They'll be prepared to record a time on the pylon here. What will Rachel Hunt's first time be? Remember, these times will pick up on the second time, but it's so important to build up speed on lap 1 to set up the second lap. Rachel Hunt starts off the qualifying session with a 53.071. It's going to get curious now if the time's going to pick back up here on lap 2, or how much it will.
Yeah, probably won't see these drivers be anywhere near the times they ran in practice, for the reason that they're out there qualifying on their own. Without the aid of the draft, these cars are significantly slow.
Yeah, right now you look at the times on the side ticker. Dixon up towards the top. Cognac up towards the top of the board for the time being. Those are going to keep on shuffling here. But again, Hunt will be the first driver you see painting that yellow line. And it's important you don't scrub speed in the corner. The more speed you scrub, especially to the corner exit, the worse it can get. Other drivers will do like this. Try and cut to the apron. Try and save a few tenths of a second there. And that in turn gets Rachel Hunt a 52.1 to finish her second qualifying lap. Next driver coming towards turns 3 and 4 is Cognac. You see him in second spot, just a couple tenths off. But sometimes that's a sign that they stay towards the bottom. We'll have to see what he can do at 183 miles an hour. Already bumped down to 6th spot. Across the stripe at 52.3. And as to be expected, might have stayed at the bottom of lap 1. That's a telling sign.
Yeah, as we saw with Rachel Hunt, she gained, close to 4 tenths on her second lap. So there's definitely some strategic ways you can approach the qualifying laps here at Talladega. It's not just pedal down.
9 tenths was actually the total gain there. Tyler Fody, though, on top of the pylon with the 52.187 with about 57 seconds to go in qualifying. 14 drivers have recorded a lap so far. The 92 machine of Cosmin Yonida is currently at the bottom of the ticker, though. While drivers like Steve Rada currently work the way on the top side still. For Rada, this is definitely not enough time to get a second lap, but it would be enough for optimal pit selection on the track. That's something also to think about.
You got to wonder if some of these drivers may be just hanging back, not taking the time for the purpose of being able to stay towards the back of the field and maybe keep their noses clean.
Definitely. That is something that we see a lot in various different levels of competition on the super speedways. But right now, following along with the 92 machine, 53-1 last time, looking to set a faster time. Up to third goes Cosmin of 52.206. That's enough to get him up to the second row as qualifying has wrapped things up. Let's take a look at your starting grid for the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series. Final race of the regular season at Talladega. On the pole, it's Tower 40, as mentioned, a 52.187, just 9/1000 of a second over Rachel Hunt. They'll lead the field to the green flag of 34-plus drivers. Cosmin Ioannishiu starts in third with Jason M. Storm. Rounding out the top four, Johnny Brug is inside the fifth spot today, with Colton Lane in P number 6. William Kruska had the pole in the last couple races or so on the season. He'll start today at Talladega, though, in 7th. Jalen Battle starts in 8th. Logan Brakey looking to break his way to victory lane in 9th. Rounding out the top 10 here, Chris, is Tyler Dixon.
Tony Edmondson just 0.06 of a second outside of the top 10. Then Dylan Martin in the 07 will be 12th. Lucky number 13 on the grid will be Alexander Cognac. And then Chris Titus, the last driver to make an attempt, will be 14th on the grid. 15th is your points leader, Jared Mogard, over Brad Cross in the 08. 17th will be Blake Trewick. And then Brandon Jackson, Jared Young, and Scott Rickard will complete your top 20.
21st spot on the grid is Evan Rice in the 88 machine, starting alongside one of the playoff hopefuls. Looking to get inside the top 12 is Jody Banfield. Corey Blevins starts in 23rd and is looking to try and get himself on the track in time to battle against Phil Campbell in his row in 24th spot is Campbell. Tom Marasco is in 25th in the Greg Biffle throwback alongside Robert Dykemper. Jack Walls is in 27th, Stefan O'Hare in 28th position. Rounding out the top 30, Alan Wilson and Danny Banfield. The rest of the field, Brett Jones, Josh Walker, Steve Rada, and Matthew Rodriguez round at the 34 entrants for the final regular season race of the season for the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series. Again, today's distance, 149 miles, 54 laps on a 2.66 mile circuit, as noted in the track preview. 33 plus degrees of banking on this racetrack, 75% the fuel limits here. In today's weather conditions, clear blue skies, 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pretty crispy track of 109 degrees Fahrenheit for these machines, with a bit of wind to deal with. However, it is facing the fans for a bit of a breeze in that tri-oval section of the racetrack today, Chris.
Yeah, well, the winds are a little bit heavier here. You can actually see some effect on the cars, but with the wind kept low, it should be pretty fair racing weather for these guys and girls.
Indeed, right now, remember Rachel Hunt starting the outside line, Tower 40 on the inside here. Who are you keeping an eye on here for what should be a thrilling 54 laps of racing action tonight?
Well, you have your regulars that are always a threat. Jared Mogard, Tyler Fody, Rachel Hunt. Names that you want to keep an eye on towards the top of the points. Cosmin Ioannishiu, I believe one of his first starts with the series. A name that I've heard tossed around in iRacing here. I think he could be a threat as well. And, you know, it's Talladega. Anything's possible.
Yeah, involved with Splash and Go graphics, in fact, and is someone that you don't usually see too many times on the track, but when you do, is someone that could potentially contend for a win, if not a top 5 in that 92 machine today. Keep an eye on him second on the bottom row of row number 2 tonight. But the driver's getting all set to go again. 54 laps the distance, 34 cars. These speeds are going to be crazy.
That's for sure, Justin. Obviously only one pace lap since the track is 2.6 miles in length, so plenty of time to have the grid formed up by the time we get back around to turn 4.
Pace car heading its way to the pit lane as we're all set to go racing for the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series from Talladega Superspeedway. Fody already leads them down towards the starting zone, all the way towards the end of the tri-oval. Some drivers trying to back up. Fody trying to pick up pace. Hunt ready on the outside line. Green flag waiting at the stand. We're racing at Talladega for the final race of the regular season.
Well, Justin, I'm already seeing some people with their back bumpers beat in a little bit.
Yes, and that's Danny Banfield, one of the drivers on the bubble entering tonight that had contact, taking the green flag from Josh Walker. The rest of the lead cars, though, were able to get through cleanly and stably. Most of the drivers, though, as you can see, trying to race to the bottom and line up. Major checkups as drivers try and back up, away from the potential traffic.
Got him stacked up towards the front with Tyler Fode leading the 7 of Johnny Brugg on the outside, trying to make a run as the two lines starting to form up a bit towards the front of the field.
Fode trying to hold on to the bottom side of the outside line. Hunt is allowed by Johnny Brugg in the 7 machine. The Pennzoil Ford Mustang trying to fight with the Napa Auto Parts Ford Mustang. Fode, though, gets the first lap of the day. As we continue our racing action, already the lead pack, just about 10 cars in it so far, make it 11. The next group back is about half a second behind these machines. As you look at the Jack Daniels machine in the 07, that's Dylan Martin trying to keep up with the draft.
You know, Dustin, been battling a cold this week. I might have to indulge in that sponsor later to try and soothe my throat.
Don't do that while driving, folks. All I can say, as that 07 machine still follows in the draft, has that car a part of a sponsorship with Austin Dillon's team, actually, at the Charlotte Roval and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series on the weekend. But that car currently watching as our second lead change of the day already taking place. Johnny Brugg getting a bonus point for leading a lap. But this is to be expected. It's going to go back and forth as this race goes on, as the pack is already closed back up to more than 15 plus cars.
These drivers doing a tremendous job keeping these packs formed up. It's not always the easiest thing. You'd think just keeping it pointed straight isn't that hard, but especially when you're going through the turns and you have cars on all sides of you, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So this is taking a lot of talent just to keep these cars in lockstep with the cars around them.
Halfway point of the race at about lap 27 tonight, as that's one of the main things, though, when it comes to this package, too. Before, with the restrictor points, if you were the last car in the pack, you would very likely lose the draft. With this package much of the year on the Superspeedways, the packs have been able to close back up and fairly quickly. Even as long as you're about a second behind somebody, you are likely to pick up the draft. While the Johnny Brugg gets the bump draft from Rachel Hunt.
Yeah, thus far in the event, it seems like Rachel Hunt is a little more willing to be an aggressive drafting partner, whereas if you look at the inside line, and Cosmin Yonishu is not quite sucked right up to the back bumper of Tyler Fode. So especially when they get going down the straightaway and Hunt has a chance to give Brugg that extra shove, it seems like it helps Brugg pull ahead.
Yeah, and especially one of the main things, though, is the bottom side, you're going to gain ground in the corners because you're on the tightest apex. That's why drivers like the bottom so much. You can see how much Fode is able to gain up on Brugg in the top line. However, once you come off the banking, the top line becomes the preferred line. They gain all the momentum and ground that they lose in the corners, right back and sometimes and then some if they've got the numbers. But one driver looking to try and get numbers to make it 3 wide, Corey Blevins, trying to run the top side, but nobody's biting. We go back to 2 wide racing.
Exactly. This track is a really interesting study as far as distance versus momentum goes. You have your drivers on the inside line, like you mentioned, and it's, again, another one of those common sense things that we don't really put too much thought into as race fans, but when you're on the inside, it's the shortest distance around the track. Whereas when you're on the outside, you have that little bit of extra banking to gain speed. You have the momentum advantage sometimes. But with the draft playing havoc there, now we see Tyler Fode pulling even further ahead, and he actually has just about the 7 of Johnny Brugg cleared, and now Brugg gets a run again and will pull alongside as they head into turn number 3.
It looked like nearly they actually checked up along the top side. That bundled things a bit behind Rachel Hunt. Colton Lane's now working behind that white, pink, and purple car. We look back from Fode, though, behind them. Yonishu still working behind him. Logan Brinkey has also got himself inside the top 5. He started in 9th position. Already 6 laps down. Majority of them led by Fody, though, on the bottom side. Just 2 leaders, him and Broom, that have been the front 2 cars in this pack since the end of lap number 1. So far, the pack still seen 20 cars within a second and a half. Only about 6 or 8 cars are not even a part of this group so far.
And how about that little pop-up we saw the last lap by Bill Kruzka, who's running pretty deep in the field, actually all by himself at the moment, set the fastest lap of the race.
That is really interesting, actually. He's in 17th right now in the 6th car and was one of the drivers that started in the top 10. He is currently trying to draft at the back end of Philip Campbell and was able to get a good run. He's one of, you can see him in basically as the buffer car that's splitting now Pack 1A and Pack 1B at the moment in this grouping, but the driver's still side by side at the moment. Thing is, though, when you're in this big of a pack, you have to check up a lot. You can't just mash it down on the pedal down to the floor and think, oh, I'm restrictor plating or super speedway racing rather now. You have to be smart about your runs.
I love that. I don't know how many races I've been in on this service where I'm restrictor plating was a very accurate way to describe what people were doing.
You have to be, as I was trying to say though, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to be very smart and kind of strategic on where do you go in your positioning, how much throttle you put in, and if you have to say check up in a situation.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. You have to really be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you're at, because it's not just where you're going right now. You have to think about where all the cars in front of you are going, what the guy next to you is doing, and if that's not enough, if you do check up, you also have to be cognizant of who's behind you, and if hopefully they're paying enough attention to realize that the car in front of them, which would be you, is slowing down.
Thing is, though, that top line is starting to break up. Rube losing a bit of ground again on the top side. Their numbers have dwindled down a bit here. Even though you can gain momentum on the top line, the thing is, though, some drivers prefer to be patient and stay maybe sometimes a single file. Their numbers have gone down by about a third in the past few laps or so as they start to reach the lap traffic.
Yeah, you could really see that when you took the look back at the field going down the straightaway. Towards the back of the pack, they're a little more strung out. They're not quite as packed together. And those are probably your guys that are taking the approach of maybe being a little more patient and trying to be there at the end versus trying to lead laps early.
And Brugge that time, though, got some pushing from Hunt. Able to edge out, heading into turn 3 off the Alabama game backstretch. However, losing the momentum back off the corner. Hunt trying to help out the 7 machine on that top line. You look on board for Rachel Hunt as she tries to push Brugge again to an outland lap for the race. Fody again drops back to second for now as they continue to go back and forth here. Right now that top line, just 7 cars in that line. But right now that bottom side currently sees nearly double that amount, including some drivers still trying to keep up with the pack. As much as 15 drivers now, separated by 0.7 of a second as they go back down the backstretch.
Well, Justin, I really feel like Rachel Hunt, that 61 car, is the linchpin to that outside groove. It looks like every time she looks like she's deciding to go, Johnny Brugge's right there getting ready to be pushed. And Brugge might be getting the accolades by leading the lap, but I really think the credit should go to Rachel Hunt. Seems like as soon as she's ready to turn up the wick, that line goes.
And we mentioned needing to time things up. You need a timeout when you push somebody to in front of you. You can't just stay hooked up on the back bumper, Chris, again, because you have to worry about the temperatures too on these race cars. You stay sealed up, your oil temps will skyrocket in the span of a couple laps. You can't push for more than maybe 3-4 laps in a row at the very most without blowing a motor.
Yeah, and you can see it where these drivers are ducking out a line to get some cool air in the radiators to try and keep those temperatures down. That's another part of managing this race that, you know, is one of those things that's in the back of your mind when you're racing it. I hadn't even thought of just with us talking about it. So that's probably why I've blown an engine or two at the super speedways.
Some drivers can get away up to 289 degrees Fahrenheit in oil temperatures. sometimes the engine might pop as low as 282. You never know when that's why you have to really manage. But it looks like Hunt wants to try and push that 7 car to get clear of Fody. No one's been able to get clear of him on that bottom line all race long so far. You look at how much shoving's going around on the bottom side. Again, Rube not able to clear on by. A near 3-car bump draft as Lane's trying to help the momentum, but again, they still cannot clear as they take a bit of a higher line through 3 and 4 to help the car they just lapped from the Kirkwood sponsored machine.
You know, when she's sticking her nose out there to try and get some air, it almost seems like Colton Lane would be more than willing to go with Rachel Hunt if she decided to step out of line around Brugge, but does not look like she's ready to make a move there yet.
You have to wonder if they want to try and get not just Brugge down to the bottom, but as well Hunt with how well they've been pushing. Lane getting a shot to the back end of the 61. But they drop down to the bottom. Hunt and Brugge do, yes indeed. So Johnny Brugge now takes control of the bottom line as the top line loses its top drivers. Hunt, though, wants the lead. Ditches Brugge working with Fody. Fody wants to try and get himself back up towards the point, potentially. Working past Hunt. Rachel Hunt gets a bonus point for that lead lap this time.
Well, I thought it was interesting that she was making motions to wanting to get past Brugge, and there we saw it with Rachel Hunt taking the lead, and now the teams have swapped a little bit that we were seeing on the track here a little bit. Now it's Rachel Hunt out front, and here comes Colton Lane with the push on the outside.
Lane's now getting a shot from Jalen Battle as he works his way into the battle. Left turn motorsports machine trying to work with the back end of Lane. Still side by side the pack. Can Lane get himself a lead lap? We're quickly approaching the pit window and this halfway point of the race. Remember, halfway is at lap 27, 39 laps to go as we start circuit number 16 here at Talladega. Lead lap, though, goes to Rachel. And a big check on the top side all of a sudden as multiple drivers have to get off the gas.
Yeah, after a relatively calm first probably 12 laps or so, things are starting to get a little bit hairy around here, Justin.
And we've seen many drivers drop to the back as soon as they've seen what was happening on lap 1, anticipating the possibilities. We're already seeing guys like Jody Banfield, you might see towards the back, and 15th trying to lose momentum. But drivers like Dixon, they want to be in the thick of things. As right now they continue to fight while the 7's having a technical issue on the bottom line, third car deep. That is starting to cause massive checkups on the bottom.
Yeah, that's one thing that's gotta make you a little nervous, especially if you're Cosmin Yonishu behind the 7. Is when the car in front of you starts disappearing and reappearing like that, and you don't really know when they're gonna pop back onto the track. That could be very nerve-wracking.
Up towards the front of this group, though, Colton Lane nearly got clear of Rachel Hunt, but just couldn't get down to the bottom in time or get enough momentum to carry himself on the high side. We've seen how strong they were with Hunt as the pusher. Right now, Battle trying to fight his way forward. Remember, he's got a win on the season for the Suicide Awareness for Everyone machine, but Lane gets the bonus point for leading that time by in the 60 car.
And a lot of those names you're seeing towards the top are the drivers that are right in the thick of the points battle as well. So the cream rising to the top, so to speak, in this event so far.
And there's been two different strategies that have been popping up. The drivers that are in that battle that want to get the lead lap points and stay up for the front, and the others such as Jody Banfield, 13th position, trying to make a 20th position rather, that want to stay away from all of this and let everything unfold in case a caution comes out or an incident happens, because if you get involved in an incident or any type of damage, especially in a fixed series, you are essentially a sitting duck on the superspeedways and lose your ability to suck up, let alone be able to lead a pack.
Yeah, the damage on these cars, especially on a super speedway, can definitely not make it for a fun evening.
Especially engine damage, too.
And look at that up front. Looks like now Tyler Fody has swapped partners. And now he's in front of Colton Lane getting the push, and it's Johnny Brugge now behind Rachel Hunt.
And this, I don't think it's a surprise. Fody followed Hunt when she got up towards the point and wanted to go for the pass on Brugge. Now Fody wants to re-lead the pack, gets back to the bottom with the help of Lane. So the 40 machine still hunting for another victory on the trot, back up to the race lead once more. And I could see that coming when he worked with Hunt to push Rachel to the lead.
Yeah, I was expecting her to kind of dart to the outside here now that they're clear of the 60 lane, but maybe she isn't aware of how clear she is.
Or maybe wants to stay behind, because remember, with only 14 gallons in the tank, what would normally be about a, say, 30-minute lap run on the super speedways is much more shorter with these cars. That is why she stayed to the bottom. Rachel Hunt is ducking to the pit lane.
Now that's pretty early considering, oh no, looks like she does have some partners following her down the pit lane. I was worried she was going to get hung out to dry.
So it looks like some of the drivers behind her able to send themselves in and catch up to her. These are some of the drivers in the 20s. Drivers like Mogart, Chris Titus, who has been very quiet, Brad Cross, who is pinched up against his own pit wall with damage now, as well as Jared Young amongst the drivers who ducked down early here. First driver out of the pit lane, though, is Jack Wells, who did not stop, which is not good in a green flag run.
Yeah, if you're going to make an attempt to make a green flag pit stop, you typically want to actually stop.
And he's going to have to come back down and lose all the drafting partners. Hunt coming out as the second driver to make service. But the pit stop times, as to be expected for tires and fuel with the distance, about 14 to 15 seconds for a majority of the drivers. One driver did take 12 seconds, and that was Yun, who is a lap down at the moment. More drivers in the pit lane, though, as the pit window is now wide open. Just 8 drivers yet to duck down, Chris.
Yeah, the pits are going to definitely start getting busy as we get towards the end of that pit window.
You see right now, Yun trying to be in front. Oh! And that's the 4 car that cut right in front of... Wow. That is not the best way to do that on a pit entry there. As we'll take another look on the GSRC replay here. Just looked like he tried to pass Yun. This just came across the front bumper. That's Steve Rada. And that looks exactly like that, Chris.
Yeah, looks like, well, obviously he had been on the track coming to pit, so he had the momentum, and he was trying to work his way around a car that had just recently pitted and was still trying to get up to speed, and unfortunately mistimed his efforts to cut down to get on the pit lane.
Here's the thing, though, with the timing of when drivers elect to pit. While you'll have a bit of a tighter pit window, so to speak, by, say, pitting early, if you time up the stop right, you can either zoom on by these cars such as these that stretched it, who will have an extra couple laps, or you might jump them. This time, though, the pack's momentum pulls Colton Lane up to the race lead. Brugge, Dylan Martin, and Tyler Fody all draft together to get right on by. Now it's going to be the question, how will the second grouping of cars that just come out be able to handle things? This is going to help them as they battle for the race lead as Brugge up to the point. Brugge looking to lead a lap. They're a couple laps away from the halfway point of this race.
And don't forget, we do give points to the top 10 at the halfway point as well, so there is some valuable points on the line here coming up very quick.
So some of the winners in that pit window, drivers like Martin, +9 now from the drop of the green. Guys like Brandon Jackson, we haven't mentioned his name. Working with guys like Blevins, Ty Marasco. They're only about a second back. This pack is about to bunch right back up with some drivers working together. Jackson now on your screen, starting in 18th position, has been in the back much of the race so far, but is trying to work around lap traffic. The 21 machine, remember, was involved in a lap 1 incident. That's Danny Banfield in 27th.
Yeah, I gotta believe Rachel Hunt has been a tremendous pusher throughout this race. She's got a car in front of her as they work on that very outside line, trying to get themselves back towards the front. So look for Rachel Hunt to be up in the mix here pretty quick as well.
Yeah, Hunt, remember, was the first lead car in the lead pack, rather, to duck down into the lane, is now in 12th position. And I found that interesting. She had led some laps, but most of the time was a pusher. Speaking of pushing, keep an eye on the top line starting to form up. You see it at the corner of your screen. Jalen Battle was getting a nice shove from Jackson, but Brugge comes up to block 3 wide, now up onto the lane as Brugge forces a massive check.
And as you can see there, we mentioned before, you have to be aware of what the drivers around you are going to do and kind of predict the move. Jalen Battle went to the outside, but the 19 behind him of Brandon Jackson wasn't quite sure what Battle was going to do, so he hesitated. That little bit of hesitation has caused them to lose a tremendous amount of spots.
Couple laps away from bonus points for some of these drivers. Fody wanting some. Battle, though, from all of that checking up, is now stuck 3 wide with the lap traffic again. And Jackson's now wanting to get on by. They're going to have to duck down to the middle, though, because the 57 car of Matthew Rodriguez is now going to be stuck on the top side. You see that driver. They are going to pass by right now to move right on by in terms of the traffic. But Fody is in the lead. Second is Logan Brinky. Dylan Martin trying to fight on the top side, though, with Colton Lane for the most bonus points, as you see that middle of the pack, and the rest of the cars zoom their way to 28 to go.
Yeah, now that push on the outside looks like Colton Lane might be getting forced out as Brugge tries to force his way up through the middle, and we have a lap car in the way.
That is Rada that they all had to scatter for. Some of the drivers forced back to 2 wide. Jackson wanting to go 3, goes back to 2 wide though. Remember, bonus points to the top 10 given this time by. So for these drivers, it's important to keep track position. Looking like the top 10 is about secured. The positions they're going to be at, though, at the stripe is still up for grabs. Fody wanting 10 more points to add to his total. Brugge looking to gain some points and potentially steal some away in the 7th car. But Tyler Fody leads at the halfway point of the race. Brugge second to the stripe at halfway. Brinky, Martin, along with Youngishu, along with Lane, Brevins, Battle, Jackson, Hunt, rounding up the top 10. Meanwhile, that 4 machine of Rada having more troubles.
Yeah, definitely has not been Rada's day so far.
He's now 3 laps down and is saying he's taking a look at the replay to the fellow drivers right now, and you can see was up on the top side, and there goes Rodriguez coming across Rodriguez's nose.
Yeah, maybe not the best spatial awareness for Rada so far in this event, as he's had a couple incidences like that.
He actually paid for the entry fee for Cosman in the 92 machine, by the way. Cosman, though, is inside the top 5, making the top 7 at the moment, but Fody leading the group currently. You can see, though, in the replays that they've been fighting hard and aggressively, wanting to push by each other, as we were showing that Martin was able to find his way up to the front of the group in his Chevrolet Camaro. This is how you'll see on your screen.
Yeah, still that battle up front for the lead now with the 07 of Dylan Martin fighting past Brugge for the top spot with a push from Fody.
Yeah, and Brugge thought maybe he was going to be able to come down with Martin, maybe. Martin left him to dry, and now Martin is leading the group at the moment with 25 to go.
These alliances definitely can be a little short-lived in this event.
25 to go as the lead pack working its way down the Alabama game backstretch again, past some of the fans. But it looks like Johnny Brugge wants the lead again in the Pennzoil Ford Mustang. Lane really helping along, really pushing along, but Lane ditches him. Heading into turn 3, Colton Lane up to the point with the help of Martin as they tango draft their way down the front.
Yeah, it looked for a minute there, things were getting a little dicey when Colton Lane gave a bump draft to Brugge in the 7. On the backstretch, Lane sucked right up to the back bumper. Oh, we have the leader around.
Caution flag is out. Lane hooked by Martin, heading towards the start and finish line for the first yellow flag of the evening. And we'll see on the GSRC replay, it just looked like Lane stuck to the bottom side. Took a bit of a later arc though. Mind you, that front stretch, tri-oval goes to 4 lanes, back to 3 at the line. Lane took a little bit longer to come up. Martin came up instantly. And the bumpers didn't line up. Martin hooks them. Rachel Hunt also involved as well as a couple others.
You know, this is actually what I was in the midst of talking about when Colton Lane and Johnny Brugge teamed up on the backstretch the lap before. When Lane got to the back bumper of Brugge, they weren't quite in lockstep, and actually sent Brugge for a little bit of a fishtail down the straightaway. Brugge was able to get it gathered up, and it wasn't quite as mistimed as what we saw there a moment ago. But unfortunately, Colton Lane did not quite have things in step, and 2 left feet, and ends up head first into the wall.
Take a look at this though from Evan Rice as he had to dodge this. And just able to find the right opening on the bottom side of the track. In that incident, just 3 cars, mind you, got involved. Hunt, along with, as you've seen, Lane, and as well as mentioned, the machine, rather, of Dylan Martin. Should correct myself, 4 were involved in the incident, the 4th driver being William Kruska, who hit Hunt as they were coming into turn 1.
A lot of heavy hitters in that one. This could change the complexion of the race here big time.
Hunt was looking good on the points entering tonight, was just 3 back of the regular season title, with 4 top 10s, 1 top 5 on the season. However, William Kruska came in 14th, needed a strong run, now has severe front end damage, with the hit from Hunt. And we also seen Lane, he was the regular season points leader before that, despite having 2 less starts in the regular season, and was looking for his first win of the year. Now all 3 going to have some damage, while Martin still the lead car, but it's going to be curious to see if he gets damage repaired now under the first yellow flag pit stops of the night.
You know, Justin, I'm going to blame this one on me, though, because I had the thought in my head that, wow, we've made it a pretty good chunk of this race without having any cautions.
I mean, I was thinking of 2. Some drivers, by the way, have just missed their pit stalls, such as Jackson. Blevins, though, rolling the dice. Only an 8.4 second stop, breaking 8.9 second stop. They might have just took 2 tires, while a lot of the other drivers either still following their footsteps or taking 4 tires. But again, Jackson did not stop in the lane, so we'll have to keep an eye on what Jackson does here. There is still an expected 1 more pit stop. We're at the edge of the fuel window. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more coverage of the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series regular season finale, live from the virtual Talladega Superspeedway on the Global SimRacing Channel. Welcome back, everyone, to the Global SimRacing Channel's coverage of the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series and the regular season finale to try and decide who makes the postseason for the 6-race chase for this year's Cup Series schedule. Justin Prince alongside Chris Phoebe, Joe Peak in the director's seat. But it's going to get interesting now. 19 to go. However, with the timing of the caution flag, we were right at the very tip of the pit window. We've seen some drivers duck down. We also seen Jackson stay out. If we're talking it over, that looked like to be able to get the first car of the ducking down to top off drivers. Everybody else is right at the edge of making it on fuel, Chris.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to be having their fingers crossed, hoping that we make it the rest of the distance on.
Remember, most of the field pit at lap 21 on the first green flag run. Some drivers had to pit on lap 20, a couple stretched it to lap 22. Will everyone be able to save enough fuel to make it to the end? Or will we have another caution flag to scramble the strategy? Corey Blevins leads into the green flag. We're back racing at Talladega.
Well, Blevins running away and hiding on that start, but that may come back to bite him here in quick order.
And we also had more trouble for Danny Banfield at the back of the field. He got spun himself into the pit lane at the back of the field, was in 30th. His chances for the postseason continue to go downhill, while the draft has worked its way to the back end of Blevins again. Fody already second. The car on the bottom, first time we mentioned him all night really, was Tony Edmondson in the 43 machine. He's the third car on the bottom, side by side with Brakey.
Yeah, Edmondson hanging out, having a pretty quiet race up to this point, as Logan Brakey and Johnny Brugge trying to make that outside line happen.
When the season started at Daytona a few months ago, he made it just 6 laps before finishing the race in the garage area, second to last. Wants to redeem himself in this Superspeedway race. Left lap goes to Blevins, but Brakey wants to get up to the point. Trying to work on the high side with Johnny Brugge. Brugge in his 3rd race of the campaign. Still trying to make it work with just 2 cars. Might get a 3rd helper though. The 44 of Dixon closing in and approaching the side panels of the 92.
Yep, we have more people trying to join the in crowd up front, so to speak, as the draft starts to cinch up.
At this point, what do you do if you're these drivers, especially the ones that stayed out here? You're going to have a lot of aggression, but at the same time, you burn fuel as the lead car. And there's no guarantee you'll get a yellow flag here. Do you try and push the pace down as the lead car and try and go maybe 3/4 throttle down the straights? Or do you try and just stay tucked in behind and hope that you get the strategy and enough fuel to make it to the checkered?
I feel like at this point, another caution happening is probably a safe bet with how aggressive the drivers were getting towards the midpoint of the race. So if it were me, I'd be banking on that, but that's not a guarantee by any means. So you could probably see the leaders up front dictate the pace of this race for everybody else here shortly.
The cars that did top off, by the way, are 17th on back. That included guys like Chris Titus, Jared Mogart, Jalen Battle, along with Brandon Jackson, as we mentioned. That group we see on your screen, currently tucked in behind. They're actually running in the 199 to 200s at the moment, compared to the lead cars that are only going about 197, trying to save that extra little bit of fuel with 16 to go. Compared to this group of cars, fastest lap going to Wells this time by, though.
Yeah, it's one of those slow down to go faster moments, but instead of faster, these drivers are just trying to go longer.
Yeah, because this is a large track, and if you run out of fuel in the pack, there's been cases where it's led to the big one caused from that. In real life, we've seen drivers run out of fuel on a restart before and cause the big one then. You don't want it to happen to you, Chris.
That's right, and this place is a breeding ground for those big cautions. Just the style of racing that we see keeps the cars all grouped really close together. And when you have people in close quarters, one little mistake can lead to a big problem.
At the back of the pack there, you've seen Alan Wilson, the second, checking up. William Kruzka nearly made it near 2-3 wide under the yellow line. but thought second of it with his damage while the rest of the drivers fight up in front. Again, Blevins is still the lead car in the group. Fody trying to hook in behind and stay on the back bumper though. And he's in a decent spot compared to where Blevins is. He can continue to basically run half throttle, let the momentum carry him forward, and save fuel that way. While Blevins, he's burning a lot of fuel being this lead car. He dropped to 192 miles an hour off the corner that time. Brakey's taking advantage. He'll look to lead this time by, and does at the stripe.
Yeah, you gotta believe being the guy up front. It's cool and all, but man, these guys are so close on fuel. And what, 13 laps left, and it's gonna be awfully tight. These guys might want to go backing it down a little bit more.
Drivers getting ready to take it near 3 wide. Take a look at those cars in the middle of your left side screen. That is Battle and Jackson. They can potentially make it on fuel when they topped off, coming to 1 to go. They're broken up though, not enough momentum on the top side. They're trying to get up to the front. Remember, they can carry more speed and go basically full throttle for the most part since they were able to get just enough fuel potentially to make it to the finish. However, Battle this time tucks in behind on the top side, letting Jackson become the lead car of those two.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this race so far, Justin, much like the word fetch, the third line just not happening.
Yeah, you need the numbers, and there's been a lot of crazy races at Talladega in many different series where drivers can go 3 wide and hold on to it. It just seems no one's had the confidence to do so today so far, both guys and girls in the track anyone.
Looks like the lapped car there playing friendly and getting out of the way. And actually having room this time. Earlier we saw the drivers try to take it 3 wide for a moment, and the lapped car almost wrecked.
Yeah, that's the thing. And a good point to bring up here, lots of lap cars like to stay on the top side to stay out of potential trouble. In real life, some drivers stay on the bottom. That happens in iRacing too, but the problem is, if you stay on the bottom, you risk drivers not knowing what's coming. Not Kevin LePage style, more so not expecting a driver to stay low and drivers trying to squeeze each other when they go back to 3 wide while Brakey trying to push up front again. By the way, the second group of drivers that all topped off on the last caution flag have caught the draft to the back end of the group of Brett Jones.
That's going to really change how this race is playing out.
And drivers are pitting. Those are some of the drivers I think that took the wave around. Yes, Wells, Cross, and Walker cannot make it to the end. They all took waves under the caution flag. Coming to 1 to go. They can't make it to the end. Didn't get the caution they were looking for to stay on the lead lap.
Well, we got a lap car. Never mind, the lap car went below the line. Looks like things are going to get a little dicey there for a moment.
It is getting dicey though because Blevins had the check up. Brakey did not. They nearly turned each other. With some contact, Brakey able to take advantage to break his way to the point. And that's being able to take advantage of a mistake in a tight situation. But the problem is, he's losing momentum now, that top side, matching him in speed and room.
Yeah, looks like that little mistake may have been exactly the opening that Brugge was looking for, as now he'll be in the mix for the lead.
And Brugge's been in the mix all day long here. 10 laps to go last time by at the stripe. Coming to 9 to go this time by. Who do you have your eye on to be the favorite here as they continue to cycle on? Because we've seen Brugge, Fody, and a few others in contention on, as Brugge having a technical issue checking up the whole entire top side.
I still think Tyler Fody out there has to be someone to keep your eye on, Justin. He's been up front the entirety of the race, and he's ran a very, very smooth, consistent race. As he now goes to the outside, he's going to make a move.
3 wide, heading for the race lead. Check up from Brakey. Fody jumps to the top side. Middle line goes Blevins. Fody leads to the stripe as Edmondson tries to give him a shot. Can Fody cut down to try and block the momentum? No, stays with Edmondson on the top side. 8 laps to go this time as they're 3 wide in the pack.
Looks like now Blevins back up trying to take the point away from Fody. But Fody, with Edmondson right on his back bumper, what a move that was. He went from the very bottom of the track up to the top and made it work in a situation where that could have gone very wrong. So Tyler Fody now acquiescing to Corey Blevins, who's getting the push from Brakey in the 29.
Blevins and Brakey hooking back up. Remember, it got a bit snaky off of turn 4 last time with some of the tires. These drivers fighting hard. Remember, Blevins and Brakey on tires. Caution flag is out. Blevins gets turned as Fody gets contact from Brakey's car to bring up the second yellow. It's the big one at Talladega. And that one took out much of the contenders in this race. Let's take a look with the caution coming to 8 laps to go.
Yeah, it looked like Fody and Edmondson got tangled up and unfortunately came down, caught Blevins, and then it was chaos from there.
And you said it yourself, felt like an air caution might be coming. But that time, Blevins pushed up off the bottom, or Brakey, I should say. It hit the door of Fody, and around he and the rest of the pack went. And again, remember, much of the drivers in the pack were on 4 tires. However, guys like Brakey were on older tires or 2 tires in the field. As we take another look at some of the drivers that try to make it through. And Dixon really threaded the needle on some of the cars flipping.
Yeah, that's never a fun situation to find yourself in when you're just trying to continue existing and the world is turning to lava all around you.
Well, the whole world has gone upside down, not just for the playoff picture now, to make it into the top 12 in the standings to get yourself in. But now we've seen many of the contenders in this race now having to deal with significant damage. They're still having to catch the pace car with 6 laps to go. This will allow drivers to come back down to the lane to get their final fuel totals on the night. However, there's a lot of cars that are going to have to deal with some damage now on this racetrack.
Yeah, and with those cars damaged, keep in mind if they're not able to keep pace with the leaders, eventually those drivers are going to become rolling chicanes on the track as well. So that's just yet another factor to throw at these drivers trying to get locked into the playoffs.
Drivers like Fody, Edmondson, Martin, Dykemper, Brent Jones already into the garage area. Guys such as Brugge, you see him ducking down, no front end getting repairs. Blevins severe back end damage. Cosman Yanishiu having a quiet second stint, no longer a front end. William Kruska being able to fix his front nose. Brendan Jackson having to get some aerodynamic repairs. Everybody we were looking at has just been potentially thrown out of contention. Overall, 6, make it 7 cars, that's it, stayed on the racetrack this time. Brakey, Marasco, Titus, Mogart, Cross, Wells, and Walker.
Yeah, this has completely changed the outlook of this race.
At this point, who do you watch now? Because a lot of the contenders now have significant damage, and now we have a bunch of drivers we haven't talked about or have been in the 20s all race that have a shot to take the victory.
Well, you know, that's the thing that we touched on at the start of the race, Justin. So many of these guys were running back there on purpose because of the situation we just saw. A lot of the guys that were able to skate their way through that were the guys that were purposely running towards the back just in case that happened. So now those guys, thanks to their plan working out perfectly, are now going to be able to move up towards the front of the field. You still have Logan Brakey, who's been towards the front for the majority of this event. He'll probably be your leader once this all shakes out. But you have a lot of guys that, like you mentioned, we haven't talked about that are going to be up there. Their cars are going to be in good shape. And this race is playing pretty much into their hands exactly as they had hoped.
Yeah, one of them is Ty Marasco, plus 23 in the race, started 25th. And he's somebody that's got some decent skills. Only a very tiny bit of right front hood pop-up damage. Other than that, that Granger Greg Biffle throwback might be someone to watch. He's got some of the least amount of damage, in fact, just about no damage in this entire pack. Compare that to behind him. Chris Titus, he topped off, can make it at the end. He's in third, plus 11 behind him. Mogart, he's been one of the top contenders this season. He stayed in the back most of this race. And I think he's now ready to try and pounce for this victory here to try and continue to his totals.
Yeah, how about that? When you look at your top 10, of the drivers running in the top 10 right now, only 2 of them started there, and 4 of them started 25th or worse.
After some of the drivers have ducked into the pit lane, battles up to 8th, O'Hare's in 9th. Jared Young now in the top 10. Remember Young? He was as much as a couple laps down at one point, and now is having a chance to be in the top 10 here in the Art of Hope car. But they're still tucked in behind the pace car. About getting the 2-to-go signal, it looks like here for these drivers. No wave arounds with what is looking like a potential 3-lap shootout here, Chris. Not a lot of time to get the momentum here. What do you see these drivers trying to do to try and secure this victory and/or their postseason clinched position?
Well, the optimist in me has me expecting a caution here in short order. But what I'm thinking we'll see is a lot of drivers that are going to be fighting really hard to gain any position they can, and without a lot of time to really get the momentum built up, we're going to see a lot of daring moves and not very much room being given to your fellow competitor.
And we mentioned some of the drivers moving themselves up to the front. Everybody in the top 7, double-digit positions gained, except for Brakey here. Who do you have trying to take this checker flag, or being the one who gets it, rather?
I think Logan Brakey is going to be very tough. He's been up front all day. This race has kind of played out into his hands as well. I think Jack Wells is a very tough competitor, and Jared Mogard is a driver that's been up there all season long, and you really can't count him out there starting towards the front as well. So there's just so many competitors out there that are really an unknown quantity in this race because they've been hanging out at the back. And with the strategy playing out as it has, it's going to be a very, very unique challenge here at the end to see who has shown what they can do and who hasn't.
Now, one thing to note, though, with Brakey, you might be able to see it just from the aerial shots there, is he's got damage on the right front that he's elected not to fix and keep the track position. That's from the contact with Fody in the exit of the trioval to bring up the big one. So he might have some problems here with being able to maintain speed. It's going to be curious what happens here as the drivers get ready to get the 1-to-go signal, and what has been an exciting and thrilling race to finish the regular season for the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series. Who will take the checker flag? The drivers getting ready for the 4-to-go mark. They'll get 3 to go when we get the green flag, 1 to go on the pace car.
Now Brakey will also have the advantage of kind of dictating the speed towards the start. If you're that driver inside row 1 on this restart, Justin, what do you think is going to be the strategies? Is Brakey, with the little bit of damage he has, is he going to want to run away and hide? Or is he going to try to keep it close and hope the driver behind him gives him a good push?
I mean, we've seen in many cases drivers in these very tight situations at the end of the race with only a couple laps to go want to bunch up the field, right? I wouldn't be surprised if Logan does the same thing. At the same time, we've seen how much, if you get a big jump, you're going to potentially be freight trained, Chris.
That's very true as well. With just so little time left in this race, there's so many different interpretations on what the best strategy is going to be. This is going to be a very, very hectic 3 laps we have here at the end.
Once again, keep an eye on the positions on the left side of your screens, because they're going to swap potentially a lot in the fight to win here at Talladega tonight. But Logan Brakey leads them on the bottom row to the restart this time. He'll be the control car in the Tim Hortons machine. Alongside him is the Craig Biffle throwback of Ty Marasco in row 1. Chris Titus will start 3rd, Mogart in 4th, Brad Cross in 5th. Rounding at the top 6 positions, Jack Wells. 7th goes to Josh Walker. 8th, we'll see Jalen Battle fighting with Stephen O'Hare. for those positions. Rounding at the top 10, Jared Young, William Kruska is also looking to gain spots. A big checkup already on the bottom side. Remember, a couple drivers that were tight on fuel did not duck down. However, they're at the cusp, if not about half a lap to the good potentially, to get to the green. Pace car is off the track. Again, Brakey dictating the start as the fans get up on their feet. Brakey bringing them nice and slow, 68 miles an hour onto the gas. Green flags out. Top 10 able to time it up. A bit of wheel spin on the two tires, but a decent start for the top 10. Everyone else behind that caught sleeping a touch.
Yeah, it looks like that played out pretty well for Logan Brakey as the 16 of Marasco ducks in behind him. But now you have the 00 of Mogard maybe looking towards the outside. Now they're going to make a move, and we might be seeing our leader getting freight trained, like you mentioned. Oh, now they're going to be three wide up front.
3 wide as Marasco gets left alone. Chris Titus getting help from Jared Mogard to get to the point. And as to be potentially expected, Brakey ditched already to the back part of the top 10. Mogart gets to the bottom with Titus. Behind them, Brad Cross. Josh Walker now working with Marasco, who got shuffled down to the 5th car in the bottom row. Battle, though, trying to start the top side. Mogart looking to track back to the 46th car to get a push with 2 laps to go. Titus goes to block.
He's going to block the outside, but he's going to leave the inside line wide open, and that's going to allow the 08 of Brad Cross now to get around. And now he's going to give up a few spots. Mogard looking to escape that line, but no, he's going to stick with him now as an opening appears on the bottom, and maybe that outside line is going to form up here shortly.
Drivers want to get up to the top to set up the pass. You don't want to do it too early either, but the bottom line has 4 drivers. The top line starting to form with 5 drivers. Heading down to the front stretch, getting ready for the white flag. If we get the white flag, the race is official. Walker comes up to block the middle line. Marasco tries to force it. Big checkup. Battle ducks down to the apron. Battle gets contact for the back end for Brakey. Tries to save it as we get the white flag. Young gets turned at the stripe. 1 to go as this race is official.
There's chaos happening in the trioval, but we have a race for the lead right now. Oh, and the 06 goes around Brakey in the wall as well.
Brakey and Wells involved in the incident, but the drivers battling for the race win up at the front. Walker leads them on the top side. Titus pushing behind him. Brad Cross looking to try and find a way up to the point through turn 3 and 4. Who's going to be able to get to the stripe first is the question. 5 cars in the lead group.
Well, Justin, this may turn out to be last man standing here as we're now 3 wide for the 2nd spot. The 01 of Josh Walker hoping to hang on. Justin, bring us home.
3 wide for 2nd spot, but in the end, it's Josh Walker taking the checker flag to win it at Talladega to end the regular season. How about that for a finish? Marasco in 2nd, Cross in 3rd, Titus and Mogart round out the top 5. But as you see on the GSRC replay, the final lap was a crazy one.
That it was chaos. There's just a little bit of contact initiated it. Driver got out of line, and everyone responding in kind turned into several drivers wrecking as we headed towards turn 1.
And that was the first of 2 incidences. There was a 2-car crash on the exit of turn 2 as well, involving Wells. But here's another look. Again, that all started, it looked like, with Brakey making some contact and Young getting hooked as they were all checking up on the exit of the trioval. And here's the incident with Wells as he got hooked by the 44 of Dixon. So much to unpack there, Chris, after a crazy finish here as burnouts take place on the front stretch. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your post-race coverage for the Sim Racers Fermentov Cup Series. For round number 10, a crazy finish at Talladega. Josh Walker takes the checkered. We'll be back in just a few moments on the Global SimRacing Channel. How about that for a finish to the regular season on the Global SimRacing Channel tonight? Welcome back to more coverage of the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series. After a wild round 10 of the season, let's take a look at your unofficial race results, where in the end it was Josh Walker who got his first win of the season, starting 32nd, third to last, and able to take the checker flag with the help of the push of Brad Cross. The difference? Just over 0.5 of a second. Ty Marasco finished third in a three-wide battle for the position, with Chris Titus and Jared Mogart rounding out the top 5. Tyler Dixon was involved in incident off turn 2, but still was able to come home in 6th spot. Scott Ricard with a very quiet day in 7th. Jalen Battle in 8th. Had to save the car multiple times as they started wrecking behind him, heading to the white flag with Bill Campbell and William Kruzka rounding up the top 10, Chris.
That's right, and 11th in the finishing order was Johnny Brugge after leading several laps earlier in the day. Jason Stewart came home 12th, with Colton Lane 13th, another driver that was up front at one point. Corey Blevins was 14th, with Cosmin Yonishu in 15th. 16th place was Stephen O'Hare, with Rachel Hunt, who was a top contender earlier in the event, settling for 17th. Robert Dykemper was 18th, with Tyler Fody, our pole sitter, forced to finish in the 19th position, with Brandon Jackson completing your top 20.
Jared Young, he was in the conversation for a top 10 after being in the 20s, even in the 30s at one point. However, with the spin, was 21 seconds back in 21st. Evan Rice 22nd, Jack Wells, involved in that incident in turn 2, came away 23rd. Last driver in the lead lap was Logan Brinke, a minute and 6 seconds back. The rest of the drivers, one lap down or more. Danny Banfield with a race to not remember, trying to fight for a postseason bid. Matthew Rodriguez, 26. Alexander Cognac in 27. Alan Wilson, the third in 28, 3 laps down. Brent Jones, 4 laps down in 29th. And Jody Banfield with a rough race, needed a good one to battle for the final spot in for the 12-car field for the playoffs, finished in 30th. Tony Edmondson, Dylan Martin, Blake Trawick, and Steve Rada round out the 34 drivers that took the green flag tonight at the Talladega Superspeedway. But it was a big win for Josh Walker, his first win on the season in the Cup Series. He now joins us in GSRC's Victory Lane celebration. Josh, crazy race, crazy win. How does it feel to go from 32nd to the checker flag?
It feels pretty good. We've been on top of it as a team past 3 weeks, and got a second, a third, and a win tonight. I just want to apologize to Danny Banfield on that start of the race. Everybody kind of brake checked up, and I got in the back of him twice there, and he wound up spinning out. But the team worked hard, and we got it back together, and luckily didn't have a whole lot of damage and just hung around the back and made our way back up through there.
You started this final restart in 7th position, but was able to find the right drafting partners and snake your way up to the lead. Talk us through that fight to get up to the front, especially with the carnage starting to take place as you guys got the white flag.
Well, luckily, my whole team, Mogard, Wales, Cross, and Titus, I don't think everybody knows that we're all teammates, but they do now because we work together, and it just happened to play out in our favor. And I picked the right lane at the right time and wound up getting around Brad there at the end, and was able to block both lanes and wound up getting the W.
You know what else it got you? Unofficially, it got you the final spot in the playoffs. You were the 12th place car in the standings after 10 out of 10 regular season races. This win got you over the top. Plus 10 was the gap unofficially. How does it feel to be in the playoffs too?
That's what I was shooting for. I told Mogard a couple of weeks ago, I said, you're going to laugh when I get to this top 12 if I come out with these good finishes. And that's what we had to do. We just put them 3 good weekends together, and it come down to this last race. And say, unfortunately, Jody and William had some trouble in that last caution. And where we were so far back, we missed it. We didn't pit. We stayed out, and say it feels good to just finally get there.
6 races to decide the championship. what's your team's strategy to go forward, because there's a large variety of tracks in the playoffs?
Outrun Mogard and Tyler Fody. They're the two best guys in this league, and they're fast everywhere we go. Just consistency, and if we luck up and get a win, we'll be there against them.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you get going after scoring your first win of the season?
Well, I do got to thank my family. My granddad passed away Monday morning, and we've been dealing with that all week. And this was my getaway this evening, to just kind of get away from it. And I'd like to thank the guy that owns my dirt car that I race every weekend, Robert Baller, and then all the guys over at Maxed Out, Mogard, Brad, Wells, Titus, all them guys. This wouldn't be no fun without them. And I'd like to thank Kruska for putting on the league, and just everybody racing clean, and just, I mean, it's an amazing feeling to finally get a win underneath my belt.
Congratulations on the victory, and congratulations, you're going playoff racing.
I appreciate that. Feels good. We're going to see if we can go get us one.
That was Josh Walker coming away with his first win of the season to get himself the final spot unofficially into the playoff bracket. He mentioned his teammates were amongst the battling as well tonight. Brad Cross came away in second. Chris Phobie is standing by with Brad. Chris?
Well, Brad, a somewhat quiet race for you this evening, and you find yourself there in the mix at the end. Tell us about your race. You kind of snuck up on us there at the end.
Yeah, that was a wild one. I'm not gonna lie. Started out all right. We was just riding around there with some of the teammates and just trying to let some of the race get over with and just make it till the end. And I had a absolutely terrible pit stop. Like I don't know what happened. Like I'm assuming, I'm just gonna say driver error, but I've never had that much trouble getting into a pit stop. But I lost my teammates there in the draft and went a lap down, and we got really lucky there, and a caution came out right before we was fixing to get lapped for the second time, so we took the wave around when everybody pitted, and I stayed out with Walker there and Jack Wells, and we just kind of worked together, kept going, and there was a caution there at the end with a couple laps to go, and we was able to pit and take about, I think we took like 8 gallons of fuel, and we all restarted up front there, and it was just, I mean, I think there was like 6 or 7 laps to go, and we all decided, we was talking over in TeamSpeak, we was like, we're just going to send it and see what happens and hope for the best.
Now, at what point in the race did you decide, like, this is go time? I'm going to the front now. Did it happen consciously, or did you just kind of find yourself meandering up?
Well, at first, we all had a plan. We was going to try to wait till like the last 10, 12 laps of the race to start working our way forward. But like I said, between Walker having some damage there at the beginning and me having that absolutely just horrendous pit stop, we just our plan kind of got shot in the face. But once we got going again, like I said, there at the end, that last caution when there was like 6 or 7, whatever it was to go there, that's when we all decided, like, collectively as a group, it's like, it's time to go. Like, we're going to push. It don't matter if we got to go 3 wide all the way up against the wall, whatever we got to do. Like, we're going to get together and we're going to the front.
Very cool. Now, variety of tracks left this season to run. We're going to see it here for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, as long as the work schedule allows it. Some nights I don't get off work till a little later, which that's what I like about this league, is it doesn't start until 10 or so my time, and that definitely makes it a lot easier to be able to get in. But sometimes if I have to, depending on the work schedule and the real life race car stuff, it's sometimes it's tough to make it, but I believe I should be able to make it here for the rest of them this season. I hope so anyways. I like running over here.
Very cool. Well, congratulations again, Brad Cross, our runner-up finisher this evening.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Cross. But the man who came away in third was Ty Marasco in 25th, and it was mentioned by some of his teammates, a part of what appears to be a top 5 for the organization here, Ty. Talk us through your racing from your perspective.
I tell you what, it was a wild ride out there today. It was the first caution. I don't know how I made it through it. Kept the car pretty clean the whole race, and I think that helped me gain top 3 here today.
Yeah, he had just a very tiny wrinkle about on part of the right front of the hood. But your team mentioned wanting to stay at the back until about 7 laps to go for when they press the go button. What were you seeing from your perspective from how much the pack was shuffling along? Because it started getting crazy after the first pit stop window.
Yeah, it started getting crazy, and I was just on the outside. I kind of got stuck out there. I wanted to pit a lap earlier with everybody else, but luckily I had a few guys stay out with me on the outside, and we were able to pit together, come back out. Took a while to get shuffled back together, but we figured it out. As a whole, everybody on the racetrack did a well job tonight.
And of course, it was a good job on the restart too, with 3 laps to go. You finished 3 wide for seconds for position, in fact, behind Josh Walker. Was there any instinct to try and find a way to get a run to pass by Walker? Were you looking to work behind Walker the whole entire way to ensure he got to the postseason?
I was just shot. That was my last shot moment right there. I didn't have anybody behind me. That kind of slowed me down. I had a little bit of a run. I took it. I tried to get the best finish I could tonight. And it was 3 wide, kept it clean, and he drove the hell out of it, that's for sure.
Indeed, and your teammates helping got him into the postseason, but finishing in the top 30 in the regular season here, where's the focus now from here for the rest of the campaign? Because the next race is at Charlotte, 100 laps on the schedule for the series.
I think the focus is just have good runnings, for the rest of the season. Didn't get to race too much. Wasn't able to race all the races this season. Maybe next season I'll be able to, but yeah, we just, we're trying to just get the best finishes we can, and I think that's all I want.
Is there anyone you want to thank before you let you get going to celebrate again with your team?
No, I just want to thank you guys. Thank you guys for doing this. You guys do a great job, and have a good night, guys.
Good night to you too. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish.
Thanks.
Tom Marasco started 25th, comes away with a top 3 in the regular season finale for the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series. But here is the unofficial top 12 after an exciting regular season finale tonight. Jalen Battle comes away with the regular season title in the end with 381 points scored in a victory. Colton Lang unofficially in 2nd, Rachel Hunt, Tyler Fody, Scott Ricard in the top 5. Corey Blevins gained 2 spots to finish 6th in the regular season. Mo Gardens was in a tie with Blevins, with Robert Dykamper, Stefan O'Hare, and Blake Traywick, who had a horrible night tonight with technical issues and crashes inside the top 10. Danny Banfield had bad luck most of the night, but finished in 11th. And as mentioned, Josh Walker, despite having 2 less starts than some of the drivers, came away in 12th. The drivers outside looking in. You heard the apology from Walker with the contact from Banfield. That eventually snowballed to being 10 points shy of the cut line. Kruzka was looking good at one point, but needed essentially a victory to get himself in the top 12 in the end, and with how the points fell, 11 points back at the cut line at 14th, with Adam Sweet and Evan Rice rounding out the top 16 of the regular season. Chris, it was an exciting regular season that with the races this year. Your thoughts?
Well, the regular season, as you mentioned, has been absolutely thrilling. A lot of great racing, a lot of great drivers we have coming through this series, and very excited to see how these last few races play out as we crown our champion.
How the postseason schedule lies is 100 laps at Charlotte on October the 9th. Then to the road course racing, they go to Sonoma for 55 laps on October the 16th. Double points night at Martinsville for 200 laps on October the 23rd. Then going to Texas for 126 laps on October the 30th. Then off to ISM Raceway for the season pre-ultimate race on November the 6th. Then at Homestead to round out the schedule, 126 laps on November the 13th. That is a very wide spread of tracks in different ways you have to approach each of them, Chris.
That's right, but as they say, variety is the spice of life. And as such, we'll take a look at a variety of racetracks and we'll have a lot of fun.
Indeed, but until the next broadcast of the Sim Racers for Mental Health Cup Series, we'd like to thank William Kruska and the Sim Racers for Mental Health for organizing what was a compelling end to the regular season. That's an understatement with some of the action tonight. We'd also like to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. They're listed up on your screen now. Additional thanks to Judith Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Also like to say thank you to our team today of Chris and Joe. If you'd like to find more about the Global SimRacing Channel, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media pages at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel in one word, or Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page as well and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Lots of racing action coming up on the GSRC's chain of networks, as well as the iRacing eSports network. Next time, we're looking at the series expected around for Texas on October the 30th. But until next time, be sure to mark down the races on the calendar. But until then, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.